This pattern is called a Devon Constable, and for the hook I'm using a Partridge SUD2 size 14, which is a nice medium wire dry fly hook. For the thread I'm using Uni 80 in the shade brown. For the body I'm using 3 fibres taken from the tail of a cock pheasant. For the rib I'm using a fine gold wire. And for the tail I'm using rusty duncock hackle fibres, which gives you a nice speckled effect, like so. And for the hackles I'm using a dark red cock hackle with a blue dun cock hackle wound through. Now to dress the fly, I'm simply coming in with my fly tying thread and I'm catching it in immediately behind the eye of the hook. And I'm going to take my thread about a third of the way down the hook shank, somewhere like so. I take my scissors, snip off the end, and now I'm ready to mount in my tail fibres. So I'm going to take my rusty dun cock hackle and I'm just going to pull out a bunch of hackle fibres. And now to judge the length of the finished fibres, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut any stray ends off. I'm just going to mount them on the hook shank, on the top of the hook shank, with a couple of turns, like so. Now I think that's a bit long, so I'll just undo it and slide the tail forward a bit. Simple pinch and loop, like so. Probably a little bit shorter, so what I'll do is I'll just pull them back a bit. And now with my fly tying thread, I'm going to come down the hook shank in nice touching turns, and I quite like that there. Now I'm going to take my fine gold wire, I'm going to lay it on the top of the hook shank so the end of the wire just finishes at the starting point where I tied in the tail fibres. And I'm going to catch it down with some nice tight turns of thread. I'm going to bring that thread down to the bend of the hook, and now I'm going to take out a few pheasant tail fibres. And I just separate those with my bodkin so I get 3 fibres. Like so. And I just trim off those brittle tips. Now again, I'm going to mount them on the hook shank so the end of those tips finish where my wire finishes and where my original tail fibres were trapped in. This will give us a nice, smooth underbody. Again, tight touching turns. Bring your tying thread up the hook shank to where those original tail fibres were tied in, like so. Now I'm going to take my hackle pliers, I'm going to trap in those pheasant tail fibres, and I'm going to form the body of the fly. And keeping your cock pheasant tail fibres taut, just bring them back up the hook shank to form the body of the fly. Try not to get any gaps, try to make it nice, even and symmetrical. And don't twist the pheasant tail fibres, just keep them nice and flat so it gives you a nice flat body profile. Now come in with my tying thread and I'll catch it down with 2 turns and 1 in front. take my scissors, cut off the excess, and now I'm ready to rib the fly. So I'll take my fine gold wire and I'll just give the fly nice, even turns of rib. It's up to you how many turns of wire you want, but I generally stick at either 6 or 7. Now again, I'll trap that in with 2 turns of thread and 1 in front. And now I'll just fret off that waste end of wire. And now I'm ready to mount in my 2 hackles. So taking your 2 hackles between your fingers, what we're going to do is we're going to mount them in both at the same time. And we want it so the blue done hackle is at the bottom. So that's going to be wound last. So we'll just even up those hackles and just catch them down with some nice tight turns of thread. And you can see the blue done is underneath. Come in with my scissors and trim off the waste ends. And now what I like to do is I just like to give it a nice even foundation for the hackles. So I will come back up my fly tying thread and then back down. Just give it a nice even foundation. You don't want any bumps in these thread wraps. So there we are, quite happy with that. And now trapping the dark red cock hackle in my hackle pliers. I'm just going to take, I'd say about 4, possibly 5 turns of hackle. Doesn't really matter if they get trapped in because you're going to come back with that done hackle. So that's going to trap a few fibres in anyway. So I'll probably just take 1 more, I think. There we go. I'll trap that down with a couple of nice tight turns of thread. Maybe 1 more. Come in with my scissors and just trim off that waste end of hackle. Come on. There we go. And now I take my blue done cock hackle in my hackle pliers and I wind that through the existing red hackle. And you're going to catch a few fibres, so you just got to go for it. Just wind it through. If you get a few fibres in the way, just brush those hackle fibres back. There we go, I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to come in with my tying thread. And again, I'm going to trap down that hackle. Come in with my scissors. Just trim off the waste end. There we go. Brush those fibres out of the way. There's a few there that I don't like, so I'll cut them off. That one I don't like, that's coming off. And now, taking my tying thread in my whip finish tool, I'm just going to form a nice whip finish to the fly. Now, just tighten that thread, give it a nice pull so it's nice and tight. cut off your tying thread, and now you're ready just to clean up around the eye of the hook and cut off any stray hackle fibres. A few there I don't like. A couple there that just want snipping off maybe. Pull that out of the way. And there we have a Devon Constable.